Hello everybody, Scott Holmes here, Race 9 Outlaw. This is Formula 1 air racing that you're seeing on the screen here. And this is my 2021 license renewal flight. So the rules say, well, we're just kind of holding short here. The rules say that you have to renew your race license every 24 months. And it has to be agreed by the pilot committee chairperson and operations director, and if you change aircraft. So after you complete the oral examination section, then you have to do the flight observation section. There's 8 maneuvers to demonstrate. The first is an aborted start. The rules say simulate an unassisted race start, accelerate for 300 feet before simulating an engine failure by closing the throttle. Bring the aircraft to a full stop without veering more than 20 feet. So that's the first maneuver here, just getting permission from the starter to enter the runway. Once the aborted start is complete, then I'll demonstrate a race start, which is a takeoff from a full stop at full throttle without veering more than 10 feet either side of a straight line. So you're going to see the power come up, the power will come down again, brakes will come onto a full stop, and then we'll accelerate again for the runway. Note this runway is quite long. I think it's 8,500 feet. This is runway, I think it's 08 at Reno. So there's tons of room to do this maneuver and still have tons of runway left over for aborts and so on. There's also another runway just to the left here that we can use as well for aborts if we have, say, an engine failure on takeoff. So looks like that's the race start, tails up now, accelerating. So the next maneuvers are all done up at altitude, over 2,000 feet. I think it was 2,000 feet. The first is make 3 180-degree turns of at least 60-degree bank at an altitude of 500 feet or higher at race speeds without appreciable loss of altitude. I don't think I did a very good job of demonstrating this in this flight. I probably could have done better. The next maneuver that you're going to see following the circling climb up to altitude over the race airport are the aileron rolls, and these are the rolls that a lot of people fail out in actually. What it says is demonstrate an aileron roll in each direction, followed by a half roll to the left with a half roll to the right recovery, all without loss of altitude exceeding 50 feet. The thinking here is if you get rolled over on the race course in wake turbulence, as this happened quite frequently, the idea is the pilot should be able to demonstrate some aerobatic prowess and skill to recover from those unusual attitudes while at race altitude. The plane only has an O200, 200 cubic inches, and it's also, the density altitude at Reno is quite high, like 8,000 feet kind of thing. So the climb up to altitude takes a while in this case. So there you can see the main Reno race apron there, and you can see the main runway. I think it's 826, and the lake at the far east end there. So what I tried to do is line up this side of the show line so that the pilot committee chairperson who's observing my flight can watch the maneuvers. There's one roll. I think I tried to do all 3 in the same pass. There's the second roll. And then this is the one that a lot of people struggle with. We have no inverted systems. Roll over and back, and I definitely could have rolled that a little bit more. It wasn't quite 100 degrees, wasn't quite fully inverted. It was still considered a pass though. So now you have to come down onto the race course and do 3 laps at race speeds without climbing in the turns. One of the things that's challenging from this altitude is coming down, losing that altitude while leaving the power up. We're all running very high RPM here, and the high RPM is hard on the motors and the propellers. And therefore you never want to just chop the throttle or throw the throttle in full or anything like that. It's very hard on everything. So we try and just leave the power where it is. So we're just doing a circling descent for the race course right now. The course is all mine. I don't have to worry about other traffic down there. But definitely, in a weird entry situation like this, you'd be looking hard for other airplanes. So this is looks like a backstretch entry. There's the low flying pylon there, I believe. Actually, no, I think that was pylon 3. There's the low flying pylon on the left there. Yeah, that was a backstretch course entry. So this is the backstretch of the course now. And one thing that Philip Goforth taught me is always roll in very early in the turns. You don't want to be still rolling as you hit the turn. You want to be rolled in and your bank angle set before you hit that first pylon. It takes a while to roll in at minimal aileron inputs, deflections. Obviously, if you just slam the ailerons in, there's a lot of drag associated with those, so you'd slow down. So we want to make all of our movements very smooth and steady here. So there's pylon 1. You can see pylon 2 up ahead. There's 2 and 3. And I'm just kind of out there having fun by myself. Nothing super low or aggressive here, just enjoying myself. The other thing that you have to remember too is this was the first race after a hiatus from 2020 due to COVID. So I was quite rusty at the time as well. It takes a little bit to shake that rust. And so I'm flying fairly conservative here as we kind of learn where the course is again. So after the laps, then the observer, the person witnessing my flight, will call a simulated emergency. And then I will pitch off the course, pull the power to idle, and dead stick glide the airplane in with the engine simulated off. The simulated emergency starts often on the backstretch. However, that's the easiest place to do it. It's much more challenging from any other place on the course. So I highly recommend anybody learning to race practices those emergencies and gets to know their airplane while gliding. Not just by pitching off the backstretch and then doing a descending 180 for landing. That's quite easy. And then when you throw in, say, a strong wind from the position I'm in right now, you can imagine, say, a 30-knot wind, a tailwind from where I am now. It would be very hard to zoom for altitude and then make a descending 180 with enough runway left at that far end of the course with the slab wing. And then alternatively, at the other end of the course, with the wind in the wrong direction, it would be very hard to make the runway as well. And so in my airplane, I get about 600 feet from the zoom. So it's very important that I use that 600 feet and use all of that 600 feet, not use a couple hundred feet thinking about where I want to go. Every second just erases and deletes options. All right, off the course we go, power to idle. Now we're going to set up for a dead stick onto, I believe it's 08. Simulated dead stick, that is. So power is idle, I'm looking for my aiming point. And what I'm doing here is I'm adjusting my glide based on how far out I am from the runway. So if I'm too hot and too high, then I will angle out from the runway. And then if I'm too low, I will angle in and cut the corner tighter. And then in an emergency, you always want to land a third to half down the runway, especially on the big runways. The shorter runways, it's a little bit tighter. So you saw that landing quite longer than most people would land. Most people would land by the numbers or something. That was quite long because in an emergency, sometimes your drag profile can increase depending on what's wrong with the airplane. and you want to make sure you have enough runway underneath you so that you can guarantee that you're going to make it. So then the landing is executed. We usually land hot side, cold side. So hot side is the non-taxiway side, and then once the tail comes down, you're under control, you can then move to the taxiway side. And that way, when the other aircraft are behind you, if they land long, they can roll past you as they use their brakes. So now we taxi in, and that's going to be the end of the flight. Thanks for watching. Once again, Scott Holmes Race 9 Outlaw, and this is Formula One Air Racing.